there is going to be something different about this Chicago Bears team in 2017. And in large part, it's due to the fact that for the first time since 2008, somebody other than Jay Cutler will head into the season as the team's starting quarterback. Just think about that. Every year, 2009 to 2016, Jay Cutler was the guy and everything that came along with that. So, it's a different feeling. A strange feeling, unfamiliar feeling. And I really don't know how to feel yet, other than I'm thankful that the 8 years of the Jay Cutler experience are once and for all finally in the rear view mirror. Now, with that said, as easy as it is to blame Jay Cutler for the woes of the Bears organization over the previous several seasons, and he definitely deserves his portion of the blame, he was not exclusive in the blame category. The Bears did not become the bad organization that they are now solely because of Jay Cutler. And honestly, to argue that would be foolish, and I wouldn't try to. There were a lot of problems with this team over the past couple of seasons, and now you get to a point in 2017. You have John Fox, who clearly looks like he's on the hot seat because all that talk in 2016 from some idiots, oh, the big John Fox turnaround, it's coming. Well, where is it? Because I sure as hell didn't see it. In fact, it seemed like they regressed in some areas in 2016. You had the organization make the big move in the draft to go up from 3 to 2 to get their young quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. And whether at the moment in time I agreed with the move or not, a lot of other people agreed with the move or not, the simple fact of the matter is the clock has finally officially begun to tick on the Chicago Bears rebuilding program. Because until they got that young quarterback, you were just wasting time. You were never going to get anywhere. You were just going to be stuck in your same cycle of mediocrity. You have to bottom out and get yourself into a position where something like this can happen. And now, Mitchell Trubisky is the quarterback of the future. And we all have to hope that he is the guy, because there's nothing more important to this organization at this point. If Mitchell Trubisky can't be that guy for Chicago, that means another few years wasted waiting for him to realize potential that will never be fulfilled, and then potentially years more searching for another guy that does ultimately what Trubisky would have failed to do and Cutler ultimately failed to do, which was to be that true franchise quarterback for the Chicago Bears that honestly they've been so sadly searching for since the Sid Luckman T formation days of the 30s and 40s. It is just striking. But the rebuilding project has officially begun. And when you look at this team in the offseason, honestly, their spending patterns indicated that this is a team that still knows that they're a long ways away from really being relevant and really being competitive. And I'm okay with that. Now, there was a lot of uproar about the big money given out to Mike Glennon, the 3 years, the $45 million. But for all intents and purposes, I think it was like, 19-20 million guaranteed, and a good portion of that came in year one. You know, at that time, when they signed him, they probably didn't know they were going to go with Trubisky. Furthermore, with the NFL salary cap rules, each team has to spend a certain percent of the total salary cap, which I believe is like 90% or so. So having a contract like Mike Glennon short term makes sense because it helps you bridge the gap until you get better players that are actually worth paying big money long term. It's just a financial reality of the NFL. And then bringing in a guy like Glennon, you know, he competes with the Trubisky. Maybe he keeps Trubisky on the sidelines for the time being. Here's the thing. If Mike Glennon represents a temporary bridge between Jay Cutler and Mitchell Trubisky, then I was fine with the signing. Because if anything else, it allowed this organization to do what they should have done a few years ago, which was ultimately move away from Jay Cutler. But again, looking at this team, their free agency approach, bringing in guys like Deion Sims, Marcus Cooper, that's not going to get anybody excited. And nor are those necessarily moves designed to get anybody excited. These are not impact difference makers. These are role players. These are just guys. And based off of the Bears' poor drafting over the years, they need to find some of these guys in free agency. Now, in the 2017 draft, the Bears really went in a different direction, and a lot of people are uncertain about it, and I'll admit In some ways, I wasn't the hugest fan of the draft, but a lot of that was tied up into Mitchell Trubisky. With that said, I loved Adam Shaheen coming out of Ashland. He was my number 3 tight end on the board, and I thought the Bears took him exactly where the hell he should have been drafted in round number 2. Eddie Jackson in round 4, the safety from Alabama. He's shown you something in the preseason. I think he's got future starter potential for them. Coming back from that leg injury, I thought he was a good value pick. And then in the 4th round again, Tarik Cohen from NCA&T. Here's a kind of Darren Sproles type of water bug type of back. You know, you're looking long-term complement to Jordan Howard. Tarik Cohen could be that guy, along with bringing you some life in the return game. So I don't think this draft class overall was nearly as bad as apparently a lot of NFL front office people made it out to be. I thought that Ryan Pace clearly was willing to gamble. He took some big chances. Again, I still don't know that the Trubisky pick fully pays off, but by God, am I going to spend every waking moment putting all of my energies towards hoping that it does. Because I've wasted enough of my adult life with crappy Chicago Bears quarterbacks. I would like to not waste any more time. Looking at this roster, in terms of what stands out in terms of their strengths, I would say their interior offensive line would be one of the biggest strengths on the team. When healthy, Kyle Long, you got Josh Sitton, you've got Cody White here at center. That's a really good guard center trio right there. You could do a lot with that guard center trio. That's a guard center trio that doesn't take a backseat to many teams in the NFL, if any, honestly. So when you bring in a young quarterback into a situation, and granted, you would prefer that talent to be on the outside at the tackle position, but hey, the guards in the center, you're good, Chicago, which is a big part why Jordan Howard had the success that he had in the running game, and I would look for the running game to be a strength of the Bears again in 2017, and by God, I certainly hope it is. When you look at Jordan Howard and what he did as a 5th-round pick coming out of Indiana, you remember before the 2016 season, I said that this kid will be their featured ball carrier by halfway through the season, and he probably should be earlier. And ultimately he was, and once he got that opportunity, man, he took the ball and he ran with it figuratively, literally. And as much as everybody was goo-goo gaga over Ezekiel Elliott's phenomenal rookie season for Dallas last year, I thought personally Jordan Howard's rookie season was more impressive because he didn't have a Dak Prescott, a Des Bryant, a Jason Witten, the best offensive line in football. Jordan Howard didn't have any of those things. And yet he still had the season that he had and still averaged over 5 yards a carry. I mean, the dude was just phenomenal. And here's hoping he's more phenomenal this year. And then I look at the defensive side of the ball. This team has slowly accumulated some nice depth at the edge rush position. Now, granted, Pernell McPhee, again, with his bulky legs, he's going to start the season on the physically unable to perform list. But you've got Willie Young, who I thought transitioned nicely to the 3-4. Leonard Floyd, last year's first-round pick, who showed you some flashes and has looked strong this preseason. Maybe a guy like a Lamar Houston, a Sam Acho. There is some depth at the edge rush position. And when you're running a 3-4, typically the most successful 3-4s are linebacker driven, and they are linebacker edge rush driven. The Bears are okay in that area. On the flip side, though, even when you look at the final cuts and you see the 53-man roster, there are so many things that stand out to you. Number one, arguably the biggest weakness they have, wide receiver. Especially once Cameron Meredith went down for what looks like the year. It left the talent cupboard very bare outside. And even with Meredith, there's still a ton of questions. What are you going to get out of Marcus Wheaton? What are you going to get out of a Bellamy and a Thompson? Most importantly of all, what are you going to get out of 2015 first-round pick Kevin White? Is he going to have that same explosiveness and big playability he demonstrated as West Virginia? Is he going to be fully recovered once and for all from the injuries, or is he going to have lost a step, and is he going to be another David Terrell type of massive disappointment for the Chicago Bears? They really need Kevin White to play like a number one, because where they drafted him indicates he better be a number one. And now's the time, year 3, it's time to finally see something. But even if he does show something, this wide receiver core is all types of suspect. You look defensively, the Bears struggle to stop teams in the running game, and I think that still will be a bit of an issue this year. The defense is going to keep them in more games than they probably honestly have any business being in, but at times, teams can run effectively against Chicago. It's in part why the pass defense numbers don't look so bad is because, in part, teams could run against the Bears. They didn't have to throw the ball as much. They just didn't feel much of an urgency because, again, the Bears' offense just wasn't a threat to consistently score a bunch of points. But the number one question for this team, not surprisingly, is the quarterback situation. You know Mike Glennon's going into the season as a starter because no matter what, John Fox was going to stubbornly dig in his heels like the dumb dick he's proven to be in Chicago, and he's going to go with the veteran guy. Should he have? Should he have not have? You know, that's up for debate or discussion. But I think based off of some of what you saw in the preseason, you could definitely make an argument that Trubisky was close enough in the range of Glennon at this point in time to say you need to go with the rookie, especially because if the pocket breaks down and the play breaks down, Trubisky is still a threat to do something with his feet. He could still make some plays happen with his feet, and also he has a better NFL arm. He can make more special NFL throws than Mike Glennon. I feel like the talent all around is better with Trubisky, the upside is better, and at this point in time, I feel like it's a mistake not going with him. But it's going to be a big question for the Bears, especially early on in the season. The schedule didn't do them any favors. How long is Mike Glennon going to play? Is he going to play well? And what happens if and when, and you would assume when in this case, Mitchell Trubisky sees the field in 2017? And as much as this team might want to talk about redshirting him, if you get to the point of the season where you start off 1-4, 2-5, something like that, you cannot honestly look at your locker room, your organization, your fan base, and tell everybody with a straight face that you really truly believe Mike Glennon gives you the best chance to win. Because if he gave you the best chance to win, you would win more football games. So that's the number one story for the Bears in 2017. Is Trubisky going to see the field? When is Trubisky going to see the field? How long will he see the field for? And ultimately, what will he do once he gets on the field? In terms of players to watch for this team, offensively and defensively, I'm honestly going to go with the last 4 first-round picks. On the defensive side of the ball, Kyle Fuller's been in the doghouse of John Fox. He showed some flashes as a rookie. The past 2 seasons, he's been a real disappointment, not able to stay healthy. And frankly, even when he was healthy, he wasn't playing very well. Now is a chance. The Bears didn't pick up his 5th-year option. He's effectively in a contract year. Here's a chance for Kyle Fuller to show that he is, by God, a starting quarterback at the NFL level. And the Bears need him to live up to that 14th overall pick status from 2014. Then I look at Leonard Floyd, last year's first-round pick. A lot of people poo-pooed trading up from 11-9 to go get him. I did not. And I was a fan of the Leonard Floyd selection. And I thought as the season went along, he acclimated himself nicely. He showed himself to be a guy that could potentially be a big threat in the future. And I really looked to him to have a monster season in year number 2 and be that focal point that the Bears build their defense around in the future. Offensively, you got to go to 2015 first-round pick Kevin White. What are you going to get out of this guy? It's put up or shut up time. I like the kid a lot coming out of West Virginia, and I still hold out hope. But the clock is ticking. It's time to show something. And then the ultimate X factor, the ultimate number one thing that matters the most, is what goes down with Mitchell Trubisky. Is he going to show anything? Is he going to show that he could be that guy or not? Or is he even going to be given a realistic chance? And ultimately, that's what this season comes down to me. When you look at the Bears' schedule early on, like I mentioned, they've got a tough early stretch. They host Atlanta week 1. They're at Tampa week 2, host Pittsburgh week 3, at Green Bay week 4, host Minnesota week 5. Now, maybe there's some hope that they could pick off a couple of those home games. Maybe they could start off like 2-3, but they're just as likely, especially with Mike Glennon as their starting quarterback, to go 0-4 or 0-5 to start off the season. And if it does happen that way, things are going to get ugly really quickly. Really quickly. Another stretch of the season I look at is weeks 10 and 11. You got back-to-back divisional games against Green Bay and Detroit. I'm looking at those 2 games. They're home games. Hopefully by then Trubisky is the starter. And let's see how that kid can do against 2 teams in the division that are clearly better than you with franchise quarterbacks. How will Trubisky measure up? So there's, even in a season that is going to be lost, and I'm sorry, I just don't see how this team has really any aspirations for being any good this year. Because you look at that roster, they've got so many holes in so many places, and the overall lack of depth is striking even still. And with some of the injury problems they've had in the past, what happens if they get hit with the injury bug at all here in 2017? They're going to be another depleted, dilapidated team. I think if this team wins 5 games this year, that's kind of, to me, their high watermark. Hopefully that means that Trubisky was on the field for 3 or 4, potentially all 5 of those wins. Not all 5-11 seasons are the same. You look at last year, 3-13, was it? Complete disaster of a season. It ultimately yielded the young quarterback that this team has been looking for so many years. Whether he's the guy or not remains to be determined. But when you talk about 5-11, there are teams that think they're playoff contenders that go 5-11. There are teams that disappoint that go 5-11. But then there are also teams that are bad but rebuilding and giving a young quarterback a chance and an opportunity that go 5-11 that makes you feel positive about the future to come. And I go back to the Bears of 2004, year 1 under Lovie Smith. Now, granted, you didn't have the young quarterback, and I know you're going to say, well, they drafted Rex Grossman. I stand by my point. But you look at that team year 1, and Grossman was out with injury. You had Hutchinson and Krenzel and all this other crap, Jonathan Quinn at the starting quarterback position. But that was a Bears team that went 5-11. They went 5-11, but you could see the possibility of the potential of the future. And within 2 years, they were in the Super Bowl. So, excuse me, I'm getting a cold here. The bottom line is not all 5-11 seasons are the same. If the Bears go 5-11 this year and Trubisky shows us something and they win a few games with him as the helm and maybe they win 1 or 2 divisional games, then I feel a little bit more optimistic about 2018 because it'll be enough to show some promise for the future and ultimately also be enough, importantly, to get John Fox the hell out of town.